What happens when a cynical auto mechanic, guarding his heart after a painful betrayal, makes a dry joke to a desperate young woman asking for a job, only for her to look him dead in the eye and accept his absurd condition. When Marcus casually muttered that he needed a wife rather than an employee, he expected her to walk away in disgust. Instead, Clara set down her worn leather bag, picked up a wrench, and offered a bold deal that would redefine both their lives. Tonight, an unexpected agreement unravels hidden secrets and sparks a quiet, powerful transformation forever. Before we dive into this deeply moving story of quiet resilience, unexpected partnership, and the courage it takes to build a life on truth, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel, tap the notification bell, and drop a comment below letting us know where in the world you are tuning in from today. Your support helps us share stories that remind us all of the power of genuine human connection. Now let us begin. Chapter 1: Oil, Steel, and the Midnight Rain. The November storm over the industrial district of Pittsburgh beat a heavy, relentless cadence against the corrugated steel roof of Vance Custom Auto and Restoration. Outside, cold rain whipped through the narrow alleyways, carrying sharp scents of wet asphalt, river salt, and cold diesel fumes. Inside the 3-bay garage, 2 overhead yellow halogen lamps illuminated a half-disassembled 1967 Ford Mustang fastback resting on hydraulic jack stands. The air smelled rich and heavy, a mixture of 30-weight motor oil, metal shavings, mineral spirits, and stale black coffee brewing on a hot plate near the parts counter. At 34 years old, Marcus Vance was a man made of quiet endurance. Standing 6'2" with broad shoulders, calloused hands, and grease permanently embedded under his fingernails, Marcus was a master mechanic and engine restoration specialist. He wore dark denim work pants, scuffed steel-toed boots, and a faded navy shop shirt with Vance embroidered in faded white thread over his left chest pocket. His short brown hair was lightly dusted with grinding debris, framing a square, weathered jawline and guarded gray eyes that watched the world with cautious discipline. 2 years ago, Marcus's world had been turned upside down. His former business partner, Greg, had quietly drained $30,000 from their joint operating account, defaulted on vendor credit lines, and disappeared overnight, leaving Marcus with an avalanche of debt, a damaged reputation, and 24 angry clients demanding completed bills. Since that bitter winter, Marcus lived by a strict, solitary code. Trust no promises, take no business partners, and keep his world confined to honest steel, torque wrenches, and mechanical precision. He worked 16 hours a day, slept on an army cot in the back office when deadlines pressed, and lived on microwave chili, stale biscuits, and black coffee. At 7:30 p.m., as Marcus leaned over the Mustang's cylinder head adjusting valve clearances with a feeler gauge, 3 sharp knocks echoed against the heavy glass of the side bay door. Marcus paused, wiping his hands on a red shop towel, a scowl deepening on his face. "We're closed," he called out over the hum of the twin-stage air compressor. "Emergency towing opens at 8 tomorrow morning." The door opened anyway, accompanied by a cold gust of wind and driving rain. Stepping into the warm garage was a woman carrying a heavy, oil-stained leather tool canvas in one hand and a rain-soaked canvas duffel bag in the other. Her name was Clara Reed. At 28, Clara possessed a striking, grounded presence. She wore an oversized waxed canvas jacket drenched in rain, dark work pants, and worn leather work boots that showed signs of heavy shop floor use. Her dark hair was tied back in a low ponytail, loose strands framing a pale, sharp-featured face with vivid hazel eyes that held a mixture of deep physical exhaustion and fierce, unyielding determination. "I'm not looking for a tow, mister," Clara said, her voice a low, steady alto that carried no panic or hesitation. "I'm looking for work." Marcus set his feeler gauge down on the metal workbench with a sharp, metallic clack. He looked at her tool bag, then at her rain-soaked boots, shaking his head with weary skepticism. "I run a solo shop, ma'am," Marcus replied flatly. "I don't hire hourly help, I don't take apprentices, and I certainly don't have the payroll for another mouth to feed." "I don't need an apprenticeship," Clara stated, setting her heavy tool bag onto the concrete floor with a thud that signaled high-grade steel sockets and heavy ratchets. I'm a certified master automotive electrician and fuel injection tuner. I can rebuild a carb, rewire an entire 1960s wiring harness from scratch, and balance a crankshaft. Give me a diagnostic test. 10 minutes. Marcus looked at her closely. In his experience, people who talked fast usually worked slow. He was exhausted, 3 days behind on a custom client build, facing an upcoming bank credit review on the shop mortgage, and struggling with an electrical short that had consumed 8 hours of his time. Letting out a tired sigh, Marcus gestured vaguely toward his wooden desk in the corner. Look, lady, I don't need an employee on payroll. At the rate the bank is breathing down my neck, I need a wife to handle the bookkeeping, split the property mortgage, and keep the regional code inspectors off my back. It was a cynical, dry joke, a piece of dark humor born from 18 months of grinding isolation. He expected her to scowl, roll her eyes, and walk back out into the rain. Instead, Clara set her duffel bag down beside the desk. She unzipped her wet canvas jacket, draped it neatly over a folding chair, walked straight to the tool rack, and picked up a heavy half-inch drive torque wrench. She looked Marcus dead in the eye with absolute, unblinking clarity. I can do both, Clara said quietly. The silence inside the garage fell heavy, broken only by the rhythmic thud of rain against the steel roof and the low hum of the fluorescent lights. Marcus stared at her, convinced he had misheard. What did you just say? I said I can do both, Clara repeated, her voice completely calm and devoid of mockery. I will manage your electrical diagnostic jobs, handle your vendor inventory ledger, and clean up your shop books. In exchange, I need legal residency, a commercial workplace paper, and 50% share of the labor profit on every electrical job I complete. Marcus let out a harsh, disbelieving laugh. Are you out of your mind? You walk in off the street in a rainstorm and offer a contract marriage to a stranger. It's not a romantic marriage, Mr. Vance, Clara corrected smoothly, leaning casually against the Mustang's fender. It's a strategic legal partnership. I know you're behind on your commercial property taxes. I saw the pink municipal notice stuck behind your shop mailbox outside. Marcus's jaw tightened. You've got a lot of nerve checking my mailbox. I have sharp eyes, Clara replied softly, and I have a problem of my own. My former employer, Apex Automotive Monopoly in West Philadelphia, is attempting to enforce a fraudulent non-compete clause and an illegal debt lien against my tools after I reported their shop manager for falsifying safety inspection certificates. She stepped closer, her hazel eyes locking onto his with raw, unadulterated truth. If I am legally married to an independent shop owner in another county, my tools and independent earnings are protected under state spouse sole proprietorship asset laws. Apex cannot seize my equipment, and you get a world-class automotive electrician who can double your shop revenue in 90 days. Marcus stood motionless, his analytical mind rapidly processing her words. He looked at her hands. Calloused knuckles, small grease stains near the thumbs, the posture of someone who spent 8 hours a day under heavy machinery. She wasn't an actor. She was a genuine wrench-turner facing a corporate wall. You're serious, Marcus breathed. I am completely serious, Clara answered. Test my work right now. If I can't find the electrical short in that fastback in under 10 minutes, I'll pick up my bags and walk out into the rain, and you never see me again. Marcus pointed a calloused finger toward the 1967 Mustang. The ignition circuit has been blowing fuses every time the starter turns. 2 other mechanics couldn't trace the ground fault. Clara didn't hesitate for a fraction of a second. She grabbed a digital multimeter from the bench, set the dial to continuity, knelt beside the fastback's open engine bay, and went to work. Her hands moved with fluid, military precision. She didn't guess. She systematically tested voltage drop along the main loom, isolated the starter relay, and traced the harness beneath the steering column. Her diagnostic logic was flawless, moving methodically from battery terminal to chassis ground. At 4 minutes and 30 seconds, Clara pulled a tiny, cracked rubber grommet from the firewall, revealing a single copper wire whose insulation had worn thin, creating an intermittent short against the bare chassis frame. "There's your short," Clara said, standing up and wiping her fingers on a shop rag. A $2 grommet and 5 inches of heat shrink tubing. Total repair time, 6 minutes. Marcus stared at the bare copper wire, then at the calm woman standing before him. In 6 minutes, she had solved a problem that had baffled him for 2 full days and threatened his client deadline. Marcus walked over to his wooden desk, pulled out a clean sheet of shop paper, and picked up a black pen. "We draft an explicit legal agreement," Marcus said, his voice dropping into a serious, razor-thin register. 2 years max separate bedrooms in the upstairs apartment. Equal division of shop utility costs. 0 personal interference in each other's private lives. And if you lie to me about your legal situation with Apex, the deal is dead on the spot. Clara picked up the pen without a moment's hesitation. "Add a clause that I get full access to the secondary bay for vintage tuning after 5 o'clock. "Deal," Marcus said. They signed the paper on the grease-stained workbench under the yellow halogen light. A contract born of necessity, forged in steel, and signed by 2 guarded souls who had forgotten how to trust the world. By 9 o'clock the following morning, the county clerk's office downtown had recorded a simple civil marriage license between Marcus Vance and Clara Reed. There was no white dress, no ring exchange ceremony, and no family champagne toasts. Just 2 signatures on legal bond paper, a $20 filing fee, and a quiet drive back to the garage in Marcus's silver F-250 pickup truck. The transition into shared living was immediate, awkward, and intensely quiet. The upstairs apartment above the garage consisted of a narrow hallway, a small kitchen with worn linoleum floors, a single bathroom, and 2 modest bedrooms. Marcus took the smaller room at the back, while Clara moved her single duffel bag into the front room overlooking the street. Despite their close physical proximity, they lived like 2 ships passing in a foggy channel. Marcus worked the morning shift from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m., focusing on heavy engine rebuilds, suspension fabrication, and brake overhauls. Clara took the late shift from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., handling complex electrical diagnostics, fuel injection mapping, and customer service management. Yet, despite their clinical boundaries, subtle changes began to alter the cold, solitary rhythm of the garage. Every evening at 6 p.m., Marcus would come down from the office to find his chaotic wooden workbench meticulously organized. Wrenches sorted by millimeter socket size, air lines coiled neatly on wall brackets, and diagnostic rags washed and folded into clean stacks. In return, Clara woke up every morning at 7 a.m. to find a fresh pot of dark roast coffee brewing on the kitchen counter, accompanied by a small wooden crate of firewood stacked beside her bedroom heater to keep the drafty second-floor apartment warm against the winter chill. On a cold Tuesday evening 3 weeks into their arrangement, Marcus was sitting at his kitchen table reviewing the shop's monthly financial ledger. For 18 months, the numbers had been printed in threatening red ink. But as Marcus scanned the latest bank statement, he paused in utter shock, calculating the numbers twice. The monthly revenue had increased by 40%. The shop's debt backlog was dropping rapidly, and 4 high-end classic car collectors from the wealthy suburbs had booked full electrical restoration packages through Clara's newly launched website page. Footsteps sounded on the wooden stairs, and Clara walked into the kitchen. She wore a comfortable gray sweater and jeans, her dark hair wet from a shower, carrying a mug of herbal tea. "You're staring at the ledger like it's about to bite you," Clara noted, offering a faint, rare smile as she sat across from him. Marcus set his pen down, looking at her with genuine awe. "How did you clear the 3-month backlog on the Chevrolet Corvette harness in 4 days?" "By systematically labeling the pinouts instead of staring at color codes like your previous partner did," Clara replied smoothly, taking a sip of tea. "And by calling the parts supplier directly to demand wholesale commercial pricing on bulk wire looms." Marcus leaned back in his chair, his gray eyes softening as he looked at his wife. "You're incredible at this, Clara," Marcus admitted softly, his voice carrying a quiet, resonant sincerity. "I haven't seen black ink on this page in 2 years." Clara looked down at her mug, a faint blush warming her pale cheeks. In her past corporate life at Apex, Her technical talent had been dismissed, exploited, or claimed by arrogant male managers. Here, in this quiet, drafty timber apartment, a man who spoke few words was recognizing her worth with absolute, unpretentious respect. "We make a good team, Marcus," Clara whispered. "Yeah," Marcus agreed gently. "We do." The quiet harmony of Vance Custom Auto was shattered on a rainy Thursday afternoon in mid-December. Marcus was under the lift in Bay 1, replacing a transmission mount on a light commercial truck, while Clara was at the front desk finalizing an invoice for a customer. The heavy glass entrance doors slammed open with aggressive force. Stepping into the front office was Richard Croft, the 45-year-old regional director of Apex Automotive Monopoly. Croft wore a $3,000 wool trench coat, his face carrying a sharp, condescending arrogance. Accompanying him were two broad-shouldered corporate private investigators carrying leather briefcases. Well, Croft purred smoothly, looking around the clean office with visible contempt. "I heard a rumor that my runaway technician was hiding out in a backwoods grease pit." Clara stood up from her chair, her posture instantly going rigid, her hazel eyes flaring with deep, defensive hostility. "Get out of this shop, Richard." Croft pulled a thick stack of legal papers from his coat pocket, slapping them onto the glass counter with a loud thud. "You owe Apex $75,000 in breach of contract liquid damages, Clara, along with a non-compete violation penalty for operating within 50 miles of our regional dealership." Marcus walked out from the Bay Area, wiping grease from his calloused hands with a red shop towel. His broad frame completely filled the office doorway, his gray eyes locking onto Croft with an immovable physical presence that made the two private investigators shift uncomfortably. "Who are you?" Croft demanded, frowning at Marcus's faded shop shirt. "Marcus Vance," Marcus stated, his low baritone voice cutting through the room like iron. "Owner of this shop, and Clara's husband." Croft paused, a cruel, mocking laugh escaping his lips. "Husband? You married this washed-up mechanic? How pathetic. This cheap paper marriage won't protect her from a corporate lawsuit, Vance." "It's not a paper marriage, Mr. Croft," Marcus said, taking two slow, deliberate steps forward until he was standing inches from Croft's face. "And under Pennsylvania Revised Statute 401B, any commercial tools and independent diagnostic software utilized by a spouse within a joint marital business are legally classified as protected marital homestead assets." Croft's arrogant smile faltered slightly. He hadn't expected an independent mechanic to recite state asset protection statutes with flawless legal precision. "Furthermore," Clara added, stepping up alongside Marcus, shoulder to shoulder, "I submitted the full, unedited audio recordings of you instructing technicians to bypass brake safety tests to the State Attorney General's Consumer Protection Division 2 hours ago." Croft went deathly pale. You did what?" "I kept the backup files on my private drive, Richard," Clara said, her voice completely devoid of fear. "If your legal team files a single fraudulent lien against this shop, those recordings will be broadcast on the 6 o'clock news, and federal investigators will audit your entire franchise network." Croft stared at Clara, then at Marcus. Standing tall, an unbroken wall of technical skill, legal protection, and absolute solidarity. Realizing he had been completely outmaneuvered and facing immediate criminal exposure, Croft grabbed his legal papers, turned on his heel, and stormed out into the rain, his investigators scrambling behind him like beaten dogs. The office fell into serene, golden stillness once again. Clara let out a long, shuddering breath, her shoulders sagging as 3 years of fear and corporate harassment finally dissolved into nothingness. Marcus turned to her, reaching out his large, calloused hand to gently grip her shoulder. "You all right, Clara?" Clara looked up into his clear gray eyes. Without saying a word, she stepped forward, throwing her arms around his waist, burying her face into his chest. Marcus froze for a fraction of a second, then wrapped his broad arms around her, pulling her close, holding her tight against his heart as the rain beat softly against the glass window. By late January, winter had covered Pittsburgh in a thick layer of white snow. Inside Bay 2 of Vance Custom Auto, the air was warm, heated by a wood-burning iron stove in the corner. The shop was quiet. All commercial jobs for the day had been completed. Standing in the center of the bay, gleaming under the warm lights, was a restored 1969 Dodge Charger R/T, a special joint project Marcus and Clara had been working on during their late evenings. The body had been painted a deep metallic charcoal, the big block V8 rebuilt to pristine mechanical perfection, and the electrical system completely custom wired by Clara with hand-loomed harnesses. Marcus stood near the driver's side door, holding a small velvet box in his hand, his heart pounding against his ribs. Clara walked out from the back office wearing a dark green sweater, holding 2 mugs of hot cocoa. She stopped when she saw Marcus standing beside the Charger, looking at her with an intensity that made her breath catch in her throat. "Marcus," Clara asked softly, setting the mugs on a workbench. "Is something wrong with the Charger?" "No," Marcus replied, his voice low, steady, and rich with deep emotion. "The Charger is perfect." He walked over to her, stopping 2 feet away. He looked at her hazel eyes, her smooth skin, and the incredible woman who had walked into his garage on a rainy November night and restored his broken life. 2 months ago, Marcus began, we signed a contract on a grease-stained piece of paper. We called it a strategic partnership. We promised 0 emotional interference and a 2-year exit strategy. Clara swallowed hard, her heart pounding in her chest. Marcus reached out, taking her hand into his large palm. "I broke the contract, Clara." "You did?" she whispered. "I fell in love with my wife," Marcus confessed, his gray eyes shining with absolute, unguarded truth. "I don't care about the 2-year deadline. I don't care about asset protection laws. I want the real thing, Clara. I want to wake up next to you every morning, build this shop with you every day, and spend the rest of my life making sure you never feel alone again." He opened the velvet box, revealing a simple, beautiful platinum ring inlaid with a thin band of polished copper wire. A custom ring he had hand-carved in his metal shop over 40 late nights. Tears of pure, liberated joy filled Clara's eyes, trailing down her cheeks. She let out a soft, choked laugh, throwing her arms around his neck. "You idiot," Clara wept happily, pulling his face down to hers. "I broke the contract 6 weeks ago." Marcus let out a deep, booming laugh, wrapping his arms around her waist, lifting her off her feet as he pulled her into a warm, passionate kiss. The cold, mechanical garage was gone, replaced by a sanctuary of pure love, trust, and genuine devotion. 18 months later, the bright June sun broke over Pittsburgh, painting the industrial district in warm golden light. Outside Vance Custom Auto and Restoration, over 50 guests had gathered for the grand reopening celebration of their expanded facility. A new secondary building had been added, Clara Vance Diagnostic and Electrical Systems, establishing the shop as the premier classic auto restoration center in the state. Local business owners, classic car collectors, and neighbors mingled near the open bay doors, enjoying fresh barbecue and admiring the gleaming vintage cars displayed on the polished concrete. Standing near the main entrance, dressed in a clean navy suit, was Marcus Vance. Beside him stood Clara, wearing a beautiful yellow sundress, her dark hair flowing naturally in the summer breeze, her hand resting comfortably in his. On her finger, the custom platinum and copper ring caught the brilliant afternoon sunlight. Former business associate Greg had been located 6 months prior by state authorities and forced to pay full financial restitution to Marcus, clearing his credit record completely. Meanwhile, Croft and Apex Automotive were undergoing a federal class action investigation triggered by Clara's whistleblowing evidence, facing massive corporate fines and criminal charges. The new electrical diagnostic bay is fully booked through November, Clara smiled, resting her head against Marcus's broad shoulder. "Looks like my wife is out earning me again," Marcus teased gently, kissing the top of her head. Clara looked up into his gray eyes, her face radiant with peace and happiness. "Do you remember what you said to me the night I walked in through that storm, Marcus?" Marcus grinned, his calloused hand squeezing hers tight. I said I needed a wife to handle the bookkeeping and share the mortgage. Clara let out a bright, victorious laugh, looking out at the sunlit garage they had built together with their own hands. And I told you I could do both, Clara whispered softly, leaning up to kiss his cheek. And I meant every single word. They stood together in the sunlit doorway, looking out at the future they had forged from steel, truth, and unbroken love. A home built to last forever. True partnership is never measured by formal legal agreements or superficial promises. It is forged through mutual respect, hard work, and the courage to trust again after life has broken your stride. Marcus thought he was making a dry joke on a rainy night, but Clara showed him that the greatest restoration a person can ever undertake is opening their heart to real love. Thank you so much for joining us for this moving and grounded story today. If Marcus and Clara's journey touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an uplifting story. We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had an unexpected moment or a bold chance completely transform your life for the better? Take care of yourselves, stay true to your heart, and we will see you in the next story.